Hey folks, welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. Oftentimes we hear about people not trusting legacy media for a lot of reasons. Omissions, intentional lack of context in stories, outright distortions, lies, and not providing credible sources. And a perfect story of that appears today in the Washington Post on the 22nd of October, 2025, with a story entitled, Trump Refugee Plan Seeks 7,000 Afrikaners and Virtually No One Else. Now, there is some useful information in this story from U.S. government employees, apparently, who became sources and betrayed their oath to the Constitution by disclosing classified information to get attention in the press or to undermine the administration. I'm not sure which. They also have some publicly available information which has been released by the State Department to them. So what I want to talk about is something I have personal knowledge of here. In this story, they intentionally distort and omit. Well, what they do is they distort something said by a refugee in America to undermine that refugee and the reputation of the refugees, of Afrikaners, of South Africans, and obviously of white people as well. To what end? To disparage this program to attack Donald Trump. This is gratuitous. It had no place in this article whatsoever. But at the end, they discuss something. And let me cover this. A couple paragraphs here, and I'm going to talk about why people no longer trust the media in general. Charles Kleinhaus, a South African farmer who arrived in the U.S. in the spring, was resettled in Buffalo, but within days moved for a job he had found in South Dakota. In doing so, he gave up all his stuff, his services, his refugee assistance. In an interview later shared on YouTube, Kleinhaus, who did not respond to requests for comment, said that a lack of domestic help was the biggest challenge for him. There's no kitchen lady you can call to sweep the house or clean the house or stuff like that, he said in an interview. You do the work. Now, that is a lie. That is not what he said. That is completely taken out of context. He was telling people, and he prefaced that by saying, America is a place where you have to earn your way. You have to work here. You can't expect other people to do things for you. All of that is omitted to give the impression that Charles Kleinhaus is a privileged person who's whining about not having domestic help. This is an obvious effort to racially undermine those coming here. Also, it talks about 400 South Africans who've come here so far, and it doesn't say South Africans, it says Afrikaners. That's also a lie, as I've completely obliterated that lie by the mainstream media over and over again. In the first group, the 59ers that came over, there were coloreds. There's a family of coloreds. There have subsequently been Indians and coloreds who've come over amongst that 400 that they claim have come over thus far. This is dishonest. This omission is intentional, or they're lazy journalists. Rebecca Davies quoted and sourced my video interview of Charles Kleinhaus, which was used for this comment. She did that in August after I did the interview. That quote, that source is what the Washington Post uses as a source. So here's my question to the Washington Post journalists, as you apparently call yourselves. Did you intentionally neglect to put in my video as a source so that viewers could hear for themselves what was said? Or to hide my content because you don't agree with it? Or are you just lazy and you referred to the Daily Maverick article from the 6th of August in your limited research? Are you that lazy and incompetent as journalists? Or was this intentional, trying to hide my content? You decide. The bottom line here is this utter nonsense. That is not what Charles Kleinhaus said. He did not make that claim. That's utter nonsense. Now, prior to that paragraph in the Washington Post article, they preface this by saying that though many of the fewer than 400 Afrikaners who've been resettled thus far appear comfortable in their new home, some have offered more cautious views of life in America, often focusing on difficulties finding employment or the higher cost of living. Of course, they cite none of these some families. All they use is Charles Kleinhaus, and they link it deceptively to a Rebecca Davis story, which quotes me and offers the actual link. So they hide the story from their readers. That's disingenuous at best. It's dishonest and outright lying, potentially. So what's the nonsense here? How about actually doing journalism and asking real questions of real people and getting real answers, instead of linking the stories and hiding things and then falsely reporting what someone says? That is not what Charles Kleinhaus said. No wonder he didn't respond for comment. No wonder he didn't respond for comment, because he never said that, and they distorted and misrepresented what he said. Do you see what we're up against here, folks? Fake news, fake journalism. At every turn, legacy media in America distort and lie. The Washington Post should be ashamed of itself for this story. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. The typical sycophants are now commenting, 2,300 comments on this within just 6 or 7 hours on the Washington Post article, Oh, look at this. Privileged white people don't have black servants. Not what Charles Kleinhaus said. Completely taken out of context. He told people to stand up and work and be here doing it themselves, not to expect someone to hand things to them. Quite the contrary to the misrepresentation and distortions by the Washington Post. Charles Kleinhaus said you need to work yourself. You need to be ready to put forward. You need to be involved. You be engaged. Don't expect handouts. That's quite the opposite. And of course, the typical leftist, lunatic, fantasy wankers on the Washington Post are like screaming and calling this guy names. Idiots. This is the damage that legacy media does to public discourse. Shame on you, Washington Post. Why didn't you contact me? Why did you contact me? You somehow were able to contact Charles Kleinhaus. How come you didn't contact me? It's intentional. It's intentional. It isn't just social media shadow banning, folks. It's legacy media also not talking to authoritative sources that actually know what they're talking about or have firsthand knowledge of things. And that's how they distort. Others. What others? You mentioned one person and you lied about what he said. Completely out of context and left most of what he said out of the quote. That's dishonest. What say you, South Africa? Zanzi? Cheers.